if I had to pick one word, and it's going to sound too simple, but I would say it's belief. It's often belief.
Spiritual belief or belief in themselves?
Belief in them. It could be spiritual belief, but often belief in themselves. Often
Okay.
it's belief in themselves. And let me unpack that a little bit. I like to say this idea of belong, believe, become. Like oftentimes when I have grown in my life, it's because I've seen peers or others that have made me feel like, okay, I can do what they can do. That's led me to believe in myself or believe something's possible that I previously didn't. And when I have that belief in myself, I can become something greater than I
Right.
was before. So the framework we teach is actually identity, purpose, and battle plan. Every decision you make is going to be influenced by what you believe about yourself. And so a big starting area for the men who come in is like, what are the things you believe about yourself? For me, I recognized for years, I told myself I'm overweight, I'm lazy, I don't have time, I'm a bad dad. And I would think things about myself that no one would ever say to me, or very few, if any,
Yeah.
would ever say. And I've thought some of the most terrible things about myself. No one has said things worse to me than the things I've thought myself. And I find I'm not the only man, and that there's a lot of men that deal with that. And so it's got to start with, what are the beliefs you have? Because if for example, let's go back to the health. That's kind of been our theme today, Jerry. If I don't believe I can lose weight, or if I don't believe I can stay consistent, I'm not going to ever try, or I'm not going to do it long enough to develop the habit or behavior in the first place. And there's this term called cognitive dissonance. Our brain looks to justify what it
Hmm.
believes. And if we're acting in it, and that's where I believe, it's kind of identity burnout, identity misalignment. When I'm doing actions that are opposite of what I believe, that burns me out, because I'm resisting what I believe about myself. And so what that often means is we've got to first acknowledge, what are those beliefs you have. Let's get them on the surface, write them down, say them out loud. Sometimes you don't realize how ridiculous those thoughts are till you say them out loud. And then it's like, okay, now let's create a new way we're going to believe about ourselves, or whether that's an affirmation, a declaration, something I'm going to say or change. And let's speak differently about ourselves, forgive ourselves for the beliefs we have, and start working towards something new. And so it seems simple to say belief, but hey, if you don't believe you can lead your team, if you don't believe you can have a good relationship with your spouse, if you don't believe, you can be a good dad for your kids, why would you change anything that you're
Hmm.
doing?
I think that imposter syndrome is something that is not talked about enough, especially when it comes with men, and probably in my experience, when it comes to entrepreneurs. With myself, I was talking with a guy that's been on 30,000 stages over the course of his life, and we were doing a podcast together, and I said, I don't know why you want to talk to me, Drew, before we came on this podcast, right? There's always that minute. And I said, with all of my experience, and again, I come from abject poverty. I've been shot. I've been with a 10-inch screwdriver, right? I mean, I've been almost killed multiple times. I lived with hookers and heroin addicts when I was 17 years old. I've done almost $500 million in revenue across a dozen businesses. I just started my 13th business. I've made fortunes and I've lost fortunes, and I still don't understand what I have to offer Drew coming on this podcast. I have that hits my head, it goes in my head. And so he said to me, you run into that all of the time. Now, the second we sit down and start talking, I'm good, right? It
Yeah.
goes away,
Yeah.
and away I go. And if I'm in your position on a podcast, if I was on your podcast, it's like, why in the hell's Drew want to talk to me? Right. But then
Yeah.
once we get going, I'm fine. But there is that, after all of those things, and I've been married for almost 30 years, and I talk to my kids every day. And I mean, every metric for success that I would have set out for myself, I have achieved. And yet I have this I'm faking it, imposter syndrome. I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, that comes into my head all the time. And I kind of think, if I have it, most people have it, right? Now that
We
might be
all
my
have it.
ego in me talking, right? But I just can't imagine that everybody could, having gone through what I've gone through and done the things that I've done, and I come away with it. It's got to be much more prevalent.
Jerry, it's so funny you say that, because as I was coming on today, I'm just prepping and looking reading more about you and your show, and I'm thinking the same thing. Man, why would Jerry want me on his show? Like, look at all the great, amazing things Jerry's done. And like,
Right.
I love that you shared that with me, and thank you for being willing to, because I think we all feel this, and I think the difference is, and to your listeners, like, Jerry, you still go forward and move anyways, even though you
Hmm.
sometimes have those doubts or those things creep in. It's normal, and we can create an identity or belief about ourselves that, hey, even when doubt comes, I'm the type of man who, does things. I'm the type of man who takes action. I'm the type of man who gets on the podcast. I'm the type of man who goes to the gym at the end of the day. And yeah, I think it's a constant battle. I think there's this stereotype that we can't talk about those doubts that we
Yeah.
have as men. And I mean, I man, 2 weeks ago, we've got men from all over the country, all different walks of life, and they're in tears sharing some of the things they've been carrying in their life, and walking away feeling more powerful and strong, realizing, man, I'm not the only man
Hmm.
that deals with this or has thought these terrible things about himself before, or who
Hmm.
has come from a past that maybe wouldn't be proud of to talk about otherwise. And so, yeah, thanks, Jerry. Thanks for sharing that.
And to that end, that's a huge mistake. I'll say two things. I probably had this when I was younger. I didn't have it because I thought I could destroy the world. Right as you get older, I think is when the imposter syndrome kind of said that you get a bit more mature take of yourself. But it never stopped me from doing anything. Right. So it was never an excuse. So it was never. It was. I felt it, but away you had to go. I used to tell myself if I had a hard sales call I was going on or had to go to court or something really important, I'd say the day's going to end. So when I would have those feelings that I'm not going to be able to perform like I should, or why do these people want to talk to me about this sale or whatever it might be, I would just tell myself, I'm going to go home tonight and the kids are going to be at home. So whatever happens between now and then, it's going to happen. There's nothing I can do to stop it. It was just kind of the justification or kind of the way that I got through it. So it never stopped me from doing anything. So that would be number one. And number two, I think that people being honest with themselves. I say, look, I have a 15-year-old education, right? I dropped out of high school as a sophomore and I was living on the streets, like I said, at 17 years old. It started my first company at 28, was a millionaire at 33. I have zero education. I have a ton of street smarts. I have a ton of common sense. Those things have only benefited me throughout my life. I've made gigantic mistakes and I have had a lot of success. And the social media today in the world, though, and I think this works against men, only shows success. And it
Hmm.
doesn't show that the background I just told you, I am Drew, who I am because of where I come from and in spite of where I come from. Both things together. I learned great lessons through all of these fantastical stories I could tell you about all of these terrible events that took place in my life. But here I am. They taught me to be the person that I am, and I could either carry it with me or I could use it as fuel. And so I think that we see a world where everybody is successful scrolling through social media and we don't realize, oh, no, that guy at the other end that did $500 million in revenue, that dude's had it brutal and life is hard and I've lost the fortune as many times as I've made it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. One of our coaches and partners at this event, his background is he was a drug addict, and was on the streets doing drugs. He's made millions. He's very successful now. Has started a pretty awesome corporation called the Fam Project. Anyways, he shared that story with men, and it was amazing how many men came up to him and just said, "I'm so glad you shared all those terrible things you went through, because I'm dealing with this, or I'm having this problem, this issue." And yeah, I think social media makes it easy to just look like, hey, everyone's doing great, and then you're thinking, man, I'm dealing with all my problems by myself, and I'm the only one who deals with these things.
Right,
It's simply
right.
not true.
And there is a loneliness to entrepreneurship. There's a loneliness to leadership, period. I think that men just need to figure out and learn. I think the last few generations has not done men well to let them access who we are as men, which is we are the ones that go and climb the mountains, and we're the ones that swim the oceans, and we're the ones that dig holes into the ground and see what happens when we're done. And many times you're doing that by yourself, and it's okay to do that by yourself. It's okay to push yourself by yourself. It's better to do it with a tribe. It's better to do it with people who have done it before so they can tell us not to dig a hole so that the top falls in on us and all of that. But at the same time, there is a loneliness to it that I think men are being hoodwinked into believing that we need to think that we're not as strong as we were, maybe more feminine than what we are, rather than understand we have tools innate in us, built in us that we can access. That's my take anyway. I don't know if that's yours. Please respond to that one.
That all resonates with me, Jerry. I believe all of that. I love the story of kind of, as you talked about, these we have these tools inside of us. The story of Michelangelo carving David, and he says when he carved David from the stone, that he just removed what wasn't David, that David
Yes.
was already there. And I just kind of love that analogy. It's like a lot of times the work we're doing as men or business owners or fathers or husbands is removing the things that aren't who we really are, because we have everything. We're capable of leading powerfully in our homes, in our businesses, in our communities.
What's your take on, I don't know if you see this as much as I do. I've done some videos on it on social media about, the dad's 40 some years old and he's sitting in the car. I shouldn't be so negative when I tell this story. So this dad's sitting in the car and he's sitting there crying and some sappy music is playing. And, the terminology is that he's going to go in there and nobody loves him and they only care about his wallet. And if he didn't provide, then he has no value. And he's sitting there, he's got tears coming out of his eyes. And then, he dries it off and he goes in the house and the kids are jumping up and down for him. And it's more about this, men are undervalued. And there's just this whole movement from my perspective that I don't understand. Maybe I've got it wrong at 57 years old. You're younger than I am, so maybe you can give me some perspective. I don't know if you've seen this, but there seems to be this weakening of men, like we weren't the ones, right, that built the world, so to speak, I guess, to put it in, as dramatic a term as I can. And that father that's sitting out in front of his car or sitting out in front of his house is so overwhelmed by the day because he spent all day ostensibly working for his family. The purpose that he is put on this planet is to go to work and suffer and sacrifice for his family and his children and his wife. And then he comes home and they don't love him enough about it, or they don't appreciate him enough about it. Like he needs those accolades to feel better about himself. I push back against all of that. I got to calm down. I get too excited about this. I admit, but feel free to push back on me if I've got that wrong. But I just go, what are we teaching the younger men today? If this is what they're saying, and if I see it on my feed, what are other people seeing?
Yeah. Yeah. As I'm kind of thinking through that, I'm just going to share what occurs to me. I feel like for my generation, at least, I've spent the last 15, almost 20 years of my adult manhood, maybe up until even the last few years, being told that being masculine, being a man isn't okay, and that
Yeah.
it's a problem. And I mean, you almost can't even say the word masculine out anymore without associating the word toxic or toxicity.
You
Like,
literally hesitated to make
yeah,
sure that was the word you wanted to use.
right,
Yeah.
because it's been like they've just been programmed on social media or the news or whatever you want to call it, is these two things that are associated. And so, I feel like to be a man, to be masculine, to lead, that's kind of been, for my generation, it's like and I feel like it's kind of turning the other direction. At
Yeah.
least that's what I've felt. I felt like this last year or two, there's kind of been a shift in men and a shift in that direction. But I felt as a man that it's like, man, it's almost like I'm not okay to provide, or I'm not okay to say I want my wife to stay home and take
Yes.
care of our kids. So, and I go provide, like, and so I don't know if that answers the question right off the bat, but what occurs to me is like, that's what I feel like I have felt as a man growing up in this day and age that maybe wasn't there before. I think I do believe there's a weight I don't want to put on my wife and kids. I don't want them to feel the weight of providing. Like, that's my job to provide and protect. I believe that. I believe that's part of my calling, and part of what God put me on this earth to do. And I think I'd agree with you a little bit, though. I don't appreciate my wife and kids acknowledging what I'm doing, and I don't
Sure.
I don't I don't believe that it's dependent upon them appreciating me. to go
Right.
do that at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah, I think and that's if it comes, it's great. That's the thing about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's very relative because I don't need when you're an entrepreneur, like I said, things are very lonely. I don't need somebody patting me on the back. And when times are going bad, there is no one to help you. You have no
Yeah.
friends in the entrepreneurial world when business is going bad. When things are going great, you have all kinds of friends, but I've never needed anybody to pat me on the back. And so again, I'm a Gen Xer and I'm right in the heart of Gen X. And I grew up in the middle of, there's nobody to give you anything and you're on your own. And it was Lord of the Flies. And so I think those experiences have helped make me what I have ultimately done. And I'm happy to hear
Mm.
you say that you felt that way because I always think maybe I'm old man in the hill, the school, in the snow with no shoes on both ways. That whole shut up, old man. What do you know? But I think that I see a lot of suffering in men that is unnecessary. I like that you went up into the mountains, 30 of you, and dudes are crying because you would never hear me say it's okay for dudes to cry except when you're up in the mountains with 30 other dudes. But it's got to stay up there and you go get it
Yeah.
out there. And then you come back and you destroy and you leave that
Yeah.
cave and you march out and you go find that pterodactyl and maybe it takes half of your arm off, but you willingly give up that arm so that your children can eat. And that pterodactyl might be business, it might be your career, it might be sales, it might be your health, it might be whatever it is. But we've tried to take from men the very essence of
Yeah.
what it is to be a man, which is to get in that boat by myself. Where are you going? I don't know. I'm going to go that direction because no one's ever gone that direction before.
Well, and how would you expect your wife and kids to know what you're going through anyways? Like that's
Exactly.
not their role. So it's like if you want help and need help, go find some brothers, go find a tribe, go
That's it.
find other men that are doing what you're doing, and yeah, you'll find others that can share in those experiences, and hey, this is what's going on in my life or my business, and this is how I handle it, and you can find that support group, and it's not my wife's problem at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I usually add that caveat at the end, the value, the benefit over and above going out and finding that pterodactyl on your own is go find an older dude that's been hunting pterodactyls a lot longer than you have. Join up with
Yeah.
that guy, right? Go find that mentor. Go find like my shameless plug, the Kronos group, right? A peer-to-peer group.
Right.
What was so important for me when I was 28 years, 30 years old, when I joined my first one, the guys were all 45 and 55. Go find those groups, guys like you that have been there before and that can provide that feedback to guys. And as men, don't worry about that you don't know the answer. It's okay to not know the answer, right? Go ask the older guys, what did you do in this case? Because it's a lot easier watching somebody take a pterodactyl down than trying to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other great thing about whether it's hiring a mentor, hiring a coach, being part of a group is you get to cut down, you get shortcuts. You get to, instead of going and figuring out on your own, you can see somebody say, hey, here's how you get there. Here's how you don't. And yeah, I mean, that's part of why I've gotten into the space that I'm in is the mentors and the people who've helped me the last 10, 12, 15 years of my life. It's like, I want to help the old me from 5 or
Yeah.
10 years ago that was looking for help and didn't know where to find it.